The world is on fire right now. And these flames seem to be getting hotter and hotter every day. You go from Orlando, you go to Alton Sterling, you go to Philando Castile, you go to Nice, you go to Turkey. Talk about what it means to be involved in a franchise that's all about a positive future. It's all about humanity having figured this out.
Starfleet is about meeting new peoples and figuring out the commonalities rather than differences. And I guess it's a message that that we need to hear right now. I don't want to make too much of it. Like I say, we're just a movie, but it's worth hearing, I guess.
How has it changed? How has being part of Star Trek changed your relationship to Star Trek?
I'm a fan of the active devotee that lives his life believing in something. That represents to me the character of a person that is very confident and sure of himself. And those are people that I admire.
Many times you feel the commerce. You feel these conversations that are being had that, we're here at 50 years of Star Trek, and the business side of it could become very reactionary. I love the conversations that we had as we were kind of building this with these characters. And part of that is because, instead of trying to make Star Trek this or that, I felt like let's go back and really kind of celebrate the essence of what made it great, And that's the fresh angle. It's not about trying to kind of catch up to whatever you think you're trying to catch up, And so, in that sense, I felt very protective, and I was very, I feel privileged to have inherited this all-star cast, and it was the fun of it, of making this film. To me, it was something that I feel like it's in parallel with the spirit of Star Trek when I was a kid, feeling that. And that's something that I wasn't expecting, but it's something that I'm definitely enjoying now.
Star Trek has always been on the forefront of pushing the idea of an inclusive world. Like in Gene Roddenberry's original pilot, there's a female first officer. Even in the original series, you have Uhura and Sulu as active members on the bridge. Why does science fiction allow for that kind of inclusion while other fiction doesn't?
I think that it removes the weight of an uncomfortable conversation that must be had. You go, oh, it's in space, therefore I can watch this. It's not, I won't be putting myself in danger. And then you watch it and the message is subtextual. And therefore it's much more effective, in my opinion.
Human beings quibble over here with a literal distance, with a literal perspective. It becomes comically small. So you're talking about, here we are on a starship in a science fiction setting, going across and meeting all kinds of species, and it makes it obvious that the differences that we're talking about in human beings, be it race or religion, they're clearly minuscule,
yes.
And I think you can obviously then
Evolve.
Well, then your bridge can be very diverse because it has to be, because it would be ridiculous if it weren't.
There's also, I think, this sense of expectation and hope that's built in.
Yeah.
And I'll use the example of technology, right? In '66, when they started the show, they decided that you're gonna have communicator, you can have tricorder, you have all these things that you see that actually kind of influence the scientists as they were developing technology, and they kind of caught up with it. And I feel like that's the same way in kind of creating the sense of future.
Can you guys remember the first time you saw somebody who looked like you on TV or in the movies?
The Star Trek was George Takei. I mean, I guess, well, no, I started watching TV in Korea. There were a lot of people that looked like me on Korean TV.
You got to win.
It was actually Star Trek, but also it was an extra on Teen Wolf. It was an Asian American guy dancing as an extra. I still remember. I'm like, oh man, he's at the high school dance. It's an
16 Candles.
No. The Long Dok Dong did not reflect.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, you do not.
Oh yeah. Ray Dong Chong for me.
Yeah? When did the first conversations about revealing Sulu's sexual orientation happen?
For me, it was actually, it happened when I first got together with Simon and Doug, and it actually came from a conversation of, I was saying how it'd be great to be able to get glimpses into the lives of these characters, and so I remember Simon had come up with the idea, and we had talked about it, and then we expanded it. I think we talked to John talked to George, I talked to George, and it was, again, I felt like my role as the gatekeeper for this chapter, it was at least to get the context of how everybody would feel, but it was very clear to me, actually it was a surprise to me that it was actually even a deal. It was like, it shouldn't be a big deal. It's not in this world, in the Star Trek world, and to me it's not a big deal, but it was something that I felt like, after talking and thinking about that, we should, it's a no-brainer. Like, we have to somehow present that, to the audience.
I had first heard about it from Justin, and I had concerns. I was concerned that George not feel like we were negating his value as an actor. He was a gay actor that played a straight character, and you know what I mean, like that we weren't lifting from him. So also I had concerns about how Asians would view it, like in the lineage of, although I really disagreed with that, but I was afraid that it would be seen as some kind of feminization of Asian men. And now, because of the way it was handled, in this very nonchalant way, all my worries about the way it would be perceived have essentially been nullified. It seems like it's been received well and understood the way we intended it.
I'll tell you, after I had a lengthy conversation with George, and a lot of it I'll keep it between me and him. But the one thing that he did say was, and I think he talked to you about it too, is that he approached Roddenberry and said, I'd like to be able to play Sulu gay. And Roddenberry said, we just had our interracial kiss and we got shut down in some stations in the South, and there's no way I can do that. The show will go down. And so, I went back and watched all those episodes, and it was interesting. It kind of, like, for me, as a kid watching George Takei portray Sulu, he was a human being, like, whenever he was on screen, I just felt like, oh, he's a human being that's on the Star, on Enterprise. And so, in a way, the greatest compliment was that George was playing Sulu as just a human being, and I do think you could re-engage, because I did, and when you watch it, that's the best thing about the portrayal of Sulu, is that he was, as an Asian American especially, seeing him, and he wasn't there for an Asian reason. That was a big moment in my life, and so I think you can re-engage, and I would welcome people to re-engage, because at the end of the day, that's the whole point, is that there's a bunch of human beings together on this shared journey.